The mind is like a pool of water. As you age, rain falls, the water gets deeper and looks so still. Occasionally some stray thought or impulse betrays its depths, but seldom. Deep down underneath, right at the bottom, something may be lying there. Something that died a long time ago. Something rotted and foul that belies the pool's still surface. We can watch the bubble rise from the bottom, smell the stench of decay, and when it happens, you don't want other people to come too close, in case they smell it too. In other words, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Fluffenhammer. Roll the music!
Every man lives, not every man truly dies.
You know what we're going to have to start doing, Adam? We're going to have to start referencing all of these quotes, because I sincerely hope that a lot of the people listening actually go and research them. Because if you go back over the past episodes of the Fluffenhammer, there's basically a treasure trove of media and material that's been referenced from like comedy shows right up to works of high
we've done
literature
Shakespeare,
and poetry.
we've done Flight of Dragons, Blackadder.
Flight of Dragons, we've done. Yes, there's been a lot. But it's nice to think that people might actually go away and read
at some point
this
is
stuff.
either does a tropes page or a Wikipedia for us, which just references everything.
That'd be cool. That'd be fun, I suppose. Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Yeah, a level of internet notoriety I'm very ambiguous about operating on.
As long as nobody
very ambiguous, you know.
George lives here, and here, and his telephone number is here. That's a bit scary.
Yeah, it would be scary for anyone who turns up on the doorstep. I could tell you that. It would be very scary indeed, especially this time of year.
Yes, as we slowly but surely move towards autumn and Halloween and the winter.
So happy. So happy. I can feel the death of summer in the air, and that's always delirious for me. I hate the summer.
I know, George. I'm so sorry.
I hate the summer. Given the option, I would start hibernating sort of around the beginning of June, right through to the end of September. That would make me deliriously happy.
So what you want to do is become like a reverse mammal.
Yes,
hibernate
basically.
through the hottest parts of the year and live in Greenland or Iceland or somewhere.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. It really does. Give me the cold and the dark any day of the week. Any day of the week. And this is not me just because I'm a horror writer. This is not me just being like trying to create some myth of myself. It's absolutely true. It's the way I've been since I was a kid, you know? In summertime, I was that kid who was always chasing the shadows around, you know? Trying to stay in the cool and the dark.
Well, it's funny you should say it, because one of my first memories of you, when we met,
so long ago,
nigh on a decade ago, was you were sitting on a balcony at the old hotel in
it was
Birmingham.
the Holiday Inn.
Yeah, the Holiday Inn.
Yeah,
and you were moving your chair along to stay in the shade when the sun was moving.
Yeah, I am not a sun child at all.
Good God, that's a long time ago.
It was a while back now, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that just depressed myself. Fantastic.
Anywho, welcome guys. Welcome back to the Fluffenhammer.
How are you doing today, George? Outside of,
good.
like, you know, thinking about the sun and the great fiery orb that will eventually consume us all.
Oh yes, but it's gone for a while now, and it's lovely and grim here now. So I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Snowed under with lots of writing work, lots of projects going on at the moment, and staring forlornly at my miniatures table, which still has tons of stuff that's only halfway constructed and halfway painted, and really, really, really needs to be done.
What sort of things are on there at the moment? What are you working on?
Well, Magnus the Red is still on there from a few years back. I got him for Christmas in 2017.
Yeah, that would be just after his release. Yeah,
and he's still not complete. There's a squad of the new Chaos Space Marines, who I love, by the way, who have been heavily converted to be a kind of renegade chapter who fight alongside my Thousand Sons.
That's cool.
They're called the Law Keepers, and they have sculpted green stuff eyes all over their armor.
Nice.
As do my Thousand Sons. It's sort of part of their background. Part of their background is that they peer into different permutations of reality and probability, and they do it via stolen eyes, the stolen eyes of demons that their sorcerers have sorcerously stolen and grafted onto them.
That's cool.
It's fun. It's fun, isn't it? But it also means I've got this idea for doing like a demon host that follows them around called the Eyeless.
Mm-hmm.
And their shtick is that they've all got... I'm going to gouge out their eyes with a modelling knife and have them so that their hands are over their eyes and then put flames coming out of their eyes, you know?
That's cool.
That's kind of fun, isn't it? It's a nice theme. It's a nice theme to be working with.
I love themes. Themes make me happy.
Me too. That's what you know, when you get those armies, and you see a lot of them online, there's a lot of very creative people out there on the forums and whatnot. When they've taken the army so far, it's almost difficult to tell what they are.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I've got a real thing for that. There's some of like the homunculi coven stuff over on Daka, the forums at Daka and whatnot.
Yeah.
And bloody hell, they've taken them into like beyond Clive Barker territory. They're amazing. They are amazing things.
Mm-hmm. They've moved into what can only be described as George territory.
Yeah, works of art. They are absolute works of art. And I like to do that with my armies too, which is why they take so bloody long.
Yes, it's one of the reasons that I'm absolutely adoring Warcry, because I get to play around with the concept for no more than 10 miniatures.
Yes,
and then,
so you can do it in a very contained arena.
And then I can move on. I mean, at the moment I've got my Corvus Cabal, which are all based around 2000X's Skeletor.
Oh, wow, okay, that's a very cool theme.
So, yeah, they've got the yellow face for the skulls and quite a nice vibrant blue skin, and then all everything's purple. My Unmade are all based around the idea of scarecrows.
Okay,
so
I like that.
A lot of browns, a lot of oranges. Put a lot of grass down on them and then burnt the grass, so it's all very autumnal.
Yeah, that's very cool.
The Iron Golems, I just went for normal Iron Golems.
I mean, and also they're so cool.
Oh, they are. I didn't.
They're such good miniatures.
I didn't want to mess with the Iron Golems. They just look too good. What's the other one? The Untamed Beasts. I went for a full-blown Africa.
Yeah, I could sort of see how that would work, actually.
I did a lot of work in looking at how animal skins and stuff work, so I could get the African... there's a word out there that's gone completely out of my head now.
Sort of a tribal thing.
Yeah. There's a certain element of the of African culture that I was trying to get to, and I can't remember what it was.
Sort of like Shaka Khan and his hordes, yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And then, of course, my ghouls, I've gone full Bretonian with them.
Of course you have. So basically, you've taken the subtext.
Oh yeah, and I've made it,
and just brought it right out into the fore. Yeah.
So it's like the Yellow King himself is just this hooded, draped figure.
I love the joke.
Oh yeah.
I love the innate joke. You know, oh, so you want Bretonians back to you? Oh well, here they are. This is what's become of your Bretonians. All right.
But it means I get.
All right.
It means I get to make this giant fat jester that just stands around, walking around, tinkling as his bells ring. You know.
I just love the notion. I mean, I would, if I was going to do a Flesh Eater Courts army, something I would love to do is have them be like like the Skeksis in the Dark Crystal, foppish and theatrical, to have ruffs around their neck, and to be almost like preening, and to be even painted, to have makeup and wigs and things, but still be these hideous, monstrous things. I think that'd work so well.
I kind of wish I'd gone for that. I went for a more humorously macabre, where I've got two of them which are knights. And they've just got horses' heads on sticks that they're...
2 halves of coconut that you're banging together.
Exactly.
That kind of thing, yeah?
So they're basically just running around with hobby horses between the legs,
Oh, brilliance. Absolute brilliance. I love it. Absolutely love it.
And my bone splitters, they've painted themselves up to be skeletons. So,
right.
So they've just got really badly painted, really crude painted bones on them, so they look like... So they wander around, it's like, we are skeletons, honest.
You're really not. You're not fooling anyone.
No, but they think they are.
They think they are. Brilliant. Oh, did you see, by the way, that the Oryx are getting a new a new battle tome?
I didn't.
You didn't? No, yeah. It was on Warhammer Community recently. They got, what is it called? Orc Tribes, I think it's called, coming out later this year.
Oh, good lord. Right, I'm going to have a look at that.
And apparently what they've done is one of the big Orc warlords has found some treasure in the vaults beneath some ancient city or whatever, and it's like some hyper magical artifact that he's now wielding like a weapon.
Oh, is that...
To attack, to destroy god beasts and whatnot, by all accounts.
Oh, good God. I'm struggling to keep up.
Yeah, right. I know, right? But there's so much happening. I mean, we even had... we kind of know now what's the format that Psychic Awakening is going to take in 40k.
Yes.
We do know the format now, so it looks like there's the whole page, which is huge, this interactive map, which is moving all the time, and it highlights particular war zones where particular things are happening. And the first one we've had crop up is clearly it's the symbol for the Eldiri, for the Asuryani specifically. And it's very clear that they are going to be the first army that gets rules for this. And I've got a funny feeling, given that have you noticed that the pictures of the Howling Banshee model, the new Howling Banshee model, it doesn't just say Howling Banshee, it says Plastic Aspect Warriors.
Yes. Now,
I think we're getting a revamped range,
I think we're getting a complete revamped range from top to bottom.
I think they're the next codex.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
I think they're the next codex. And interestingly, the description when you click on the icon, it doesn't just include the Asuryani. It includes the Inari and the Drukhari together. So are they going to do what they've done with the Space Marine Codex and have like a core codex for just all of the Eldiri, and then have not only the craft worlds but the other, the sort of offshoots of the Eldiri race in sub-codices?
I can only hope that that's the case.
Well, given the nature of the Inari can't function as a separate force. They've always had, because they have so few miniatures specifically attached to them.
Yeah.
Putting it all together in one codex and allowing them to just mix and match would make an enormous amount of sense.
Yes.
As would, in fact, just the state of the universe at the moment. It would make enormous sense, and a great way of moving the Eldiri as a race on would be uniting them a little bit. So having it so, your characters like Azdrabale, Vect, and Comora, the ruling councils of the craft worlds have looked at what's happening and said, you know what? We're going to die. If we don't unite as a race, we are going to die. It's either going to be chaos that consumes us, the Tyranids that destroy us, or it's going to be after the Space Marines and the Imperium are finished, they're going to come for us. So we have to band together. I mean, Azdrabale, Vect, and the forces of Comora are not unreasonable. They're not beyond reason.
No.
They're intelligent, politicking creatures. So, as the existence of the Inari demonstrates, I mean, Lilith Hesperax is with the Inari.
That's true.
She's actually with the Inari, So they can change, they can alter the way they think or where their loyalties lie. So I like the idea of the Inari being a sort of uniting factor.
What would be interesting is, just to sort of touch on what you said before, but to kind of push it a little bit further, it'd be interesting if the Eldari Codex, so you get you know how the Space Marines have got the Space Marine Codex and then the add-ons, the edition codexes that are coming out for it.
Which, by the way, are bloody brilliant.
So I hear.
Oh, I've read the Ultramarines one and the White Scars one, and there's more information about these chapters than there has ever been.
Yeah, I hear that they go to town on explaining how the Ultramarines are and why.
It's like the way they're organised, like the political vicissitudes within the chapter, which are manifold. It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is interesting. And the White Scars are so well characterised now. They used to be one of those chapters that were kind of a little bit off to the side.
Yeah, they were also run, yeah.
Yeah, but no, there's loads of character to them now. They're really interesting. I'm very pleased with the way it's working out, I've got to say.
Well, I think that's probably the way to do it with the Eldari as well. So you release the Eldari Codex, then you have the Inari...
So you have the Agiani Codex, I suppose.
Yes, it
the
would
Eldari
be,
Codex. Then you have the offshoots for the craft worlds. Maybe one for the Inari, one for homunculi covens, one for cabals, and one for witch cults, maybe, or maybe just one for Drukhari.
Yeah.
That would work. That would work rather well. I really like the idea of that because, of course, it gives them space. It gives them space to explore where the craft worlds are now and what they're doing. Like, for example, what the hell is going on with Ulthwé?
Yeah.
Now that it doesn't have Eldred Ulthran anymore.
I can imagine it's going into complete lockdown.
I've got a funny feeling because they're a suspicious, paranoid lot anyway, aren't they?
No, always have been.
And the other Eldari don't like them.
No.
The other Agiani don't like them because they interfere too much.
How would you feel if the entirety of the Eldari race got folded into one book that was...
I like the idea. I like the idea. So it has like a section for the Agiani, a section for the Drukhari, and maybe a section for the Inari. And then you have, for the offshoot books, for the supplements, you have the individual craft worlds.
Yeah.
The individual cabals, maybe, and the homunculi covens.
So I was just thinking there, what would make the Eldari... interesting. What would push them past being elves in space? Which, let's be fair, it's what they were to begin with. Would be
they've come a long way since then. They've definitely become their own thing.
Oh yeah,
But
it'd be interesting if the Inari were the thing that was the thrust for the Eldari. That the Inari were the main race for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if the Inari, I think the Inari could work really well as a uniting factor for them. Because they are nomadic and they are going around trying to unite the Eldari race as a people. I like that. And another thing I hope they introduce with the new codex, which I'm fairly certain is coming, is more of the ambiguity in the Inari.
Yes.
I want them to play on that a little bit. So, I mean, you've got to bear in mind they're a death cult. They're a death cult. Their whole shtick is that they don't just want to unite the Eldari race. They want to commit a kind of auto-genocide. Because that's how it works. That's
it is.
That's how Iniad is supposed to be reborn, through the mass death of the entire Eldari race. So for them to be working towards that, and for some of the Eldari to not realise that, introduces a very interesting tension, very similar to what's going on with Morathai in AOS.
That's true, yeah.
So that would be fun to play with. That, and of course, on top of that, you've got all the intrigues with Asdrabale Vect following his own politics, and the homunculi following their own agendas, and so on and so forth.
It would be really interesting if the Eldari, through the Inari, became the big bad of the 40k universe quite quickly. You know, obviously the Chaos Powers are always going to be the main and
like nemesis.
Yeah, the background nemesis. Yeah,
But to have them in ascendance, perhaps.
that I think would be really interesting. 'Cause I know that undoing a lot of what the Eldari and the Eldar were would be a bit of a kick to the fans.
As long as they do it in such a manner that people can still use their existing armies, I don't mind. I actually don't mind if they move them on quite considerably now.
No,
because they
I'd
need
like it. I would really like it.
I would too. I mean, they've done a lot in recent years. They've done a lot that I wasn't expecting.
True enough.
Like the destruction of BL Tarn, for example, was not expecting that. The political shattering of Ulthwé, was not expecting that. The exile of Eldred Ulthran, wasn't expecting that. But they need to make them more significant, because they've always been flailing on the edges.
Yeah.
The Eldari. They need to unite them and have them ascend a little bit. Also, what about, I mean, one of the things they've been doing recently, particularly with the Inari, is having them be less xenophobic.
Yes.
The Inari have been working with humanity a lot.
Yeah, over thousands and thousands of years for this point.
So it seems. Yeah. So it seems, because they are kind of responsible for the resurrection of Robert Gilman, aren't they? So, you know, and it seems like there are elements in both the Imperium and in the Eldari that are less xenophobic land, like Belisarius Cawl.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to mind working with the Eldari at all.
No, if it... I mean, the Mechanicus is always a bit of a strange one, because they're
their own entity, aren't they?
Yeah, I know that people talk about them being an Imperious, a part of the Imperium. They're not.
Yes.
As such.
But it's nominal, isn't it? It's nominal.
Yeah.
It's for the sake of the politics, really.
They have an alliance with Terra.
That's basically it.
And that's one of the things I really like about them.
It's the fact they've been given such license as well.
Yes.
I mean, any other, nominally human settlement or civilization that had gone as far as they have to undo their own humanity would have been bombed out of existence by the Great Crusade. It would have been absolutely annihilated as a heresy against humanity.
Yeah.
But because they're useful, because they provide all of the machines and whatnot, they've been given a little bit of license. They can get away with it. I kind of like that tension. And it does show you it shows you some of the politics behind the Imperium and just how ready it is to actually abandon its own principles as long as it's good for it, as long as it's useful for it.
Yeah. There can't be changes made, or things have to really inform the overall story. When it comes to the Adeptus Mechanicus, I feel that what they've managed to do is insidiously put ideas into the background and then just go, well, that's there. Now, it's entirely up to you what you want to do with it, or what you want to think about it. But we're just going to be over here, just, making sure that humanity exists. And also there's a void dragon.
Oh, yes, by the way.
In
case you didn't know.
Hang on, what? No, come back. We need more.
Come back a little bit.
We need more than... No. Stop being over there with the Ultramarines.
There's a Catan underneath Mars influencing the Mechanica.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And whenever it gets mentioned, it just kind of like goes by in passing, and
it's swept under the carpet a little bit, isn't it?
And I think it's a work of genius when it comes to GW and how they've done this.
Yeah.
They've never once tried to explain it. They've never once done anything other than that might be there.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, just what influence the Catan have within the Adeptus Mechanica.
Massively so.
Because it draws parallels between them and the Necrons,
Yep.
of which there are obvious parallels. I mean, in many respects, the Necrons, with their biotransference, represent what the Mechanicum believe, which is the ascendance to a state of pure machine.
Yeah, they are the walking... The Necrons are what happens when the... I was going to say the synchronicity, that's not the right word. What's it called when the... humanity becomes more machine than man? There's a word.
You mean the singularity?
The singularity, that's the one. Thank you.
Is that what you're looking for? The sort of transhumanist thing, yeah?
Yeah, the Necrons are what happens when the singularity goes to its its end
It's
point.
utmost extreme.
And,
it's utmost extreme.
and the mechanics are the what happens when the singularity takes effect. So,
They're not quite there yet. They're not quite there. I suppose the next step, certainly for the Necrons, would be an ascendance to a state of pure data, like a virtual or digital state, a new kind of metaphysics beyond the warp. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there is like a network of some description that sustains them, that allows them to communicate. That would be interesting to play around with. Very
much so. It's one of those things where I really, really wish there was more about the Dark Mechanicum, because the Dark Mechanicum, they seem to be the ones pushing further forward.
Well, that's kind of where they were born.
Yeah.
If you look at books like Mechanicum and the Horus Heresy, what really turned most of Mars to Horus's side is the fact that embracing the warp and chaos and the powers of the warp breaks down the barriers. It means that their experiments can now be wild and beyond the restraints and restrictions of even physical law.
Mm-hmm.
So they bond with the machine on a much more intimate level than any of the Mechanicum ever can. So ultimately you do get things like obliterators and mutilators and whatnot, which are bound to machines in such a manner that it's impossible to divorce machine from anatomy.
Yeah. One of the ones that really sticks in my mind is, it was in a short story somewhere, I cannot remember where. It was a Dark Mechanicum ship, and the outside of it was just welded failures of experiments.
Mm-hmm.
So they were all just, well, this didn't work, right? What are we going to do with it? Just weld it to the side of the ship and use it
weld it to the ship.
Just use it as like a power source.
Ablative armor or something.
Hang on a sec. What? Are they dead? Oh, no, just weld them in, just leave them there.
Yeah.
So when you've got these things floating through space, screaming in the soundless sky, it absolutely just says more about what the Dark Mechanicum could be and what the
Dark
concept
Mechanicum
of them is.
If I were designing the Dark Mechanicum aesthetically, the thing I'd look to immediately is H.R. Giger's Biomechanoids.
Yes.
Immediately, because that's the kind of aesthetic I think they occupy, where it's impossible to divorce anatomy from machinery. I love that aesthetic. I absolutely love it. I'm sure there will be a Dark Mechanicum book. I'm fairly certain at this point they're moving towards it anyway. If you look at all of those miniatures, that were released for Blackstone Fortress, those cultists that were infected with the technovirus.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. The Lord of Discord for the Chaos Space Marines, the new demon engines. It's where they're going.
Yeah.
It's where they're going. There will be, I absolutely no doubt, a Dark Mechanicum, maybe a supplement when they do the Chaos Space Marines book.
Well, what I think is actually going to happen is we're going to see cultists. The sheer amount of them that's been thrown out in Blackstone Fortress.
There's loads, aren't there?
And then, of course, the stuff that was in Kill Team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced that we're going to see a cultist book, and that would tie in quite nicely.
Mm-hmm.
You have Slaves to Darkness, so to speak, or something like that comes out, and then addition to that would be occultists. Then addition to that would be a Dark Mechanicum.
Yeah, I love that idea. Love the idea. I think that would work really, really well. And I love the notion of having a book of Chaos Cultists that's kind of the rival to the Gene Stealer cult.
Yeah. Because I think that's one of the things that they've kind of missed a trick in doing. That.
Oh, totally. If they released a Chaos Cultist book, I'll be all over it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would. I think they'd go nuts.
Yeah, I would. I've got a thing. I've got this weird love-hate relationship with cults. I love cults in fiction, hate cults in real life. They frighten.
Oh yeah,
they legitimately terrify me.
Oh, anybody with any sense is terrified by cults in real life, because the ultimate expression of cults in real life is either they swell to the point whereby they become politically dangerous, like say the Mormon Church or the Witnesses or whatever, or Scientology. Or they go down the Jim Jones route where they commit mass atrocity,
Yeah.
Those are kind of the two choices when it comes to cults, and neither one is particularly attractive. No. And by the way, all cults are inherently abusive. It doesn't matter which one you belong to. They're all inherently abusive.
Of course they are, because they're all built on ego.
Yeah, and they all have those internal power structures whereby abuse is inherent.
Yes.
It's just inherent to the structure because they're built on authority. They're built on the notion that people should bow and submit to particular leaders, whether they're called elders or priests or high matriarchs or whatever the hell you want to call them, you know?
I'd only want to be in a cult if I was allowed to have the name of Big Hydra.
Big Hydra.
Yep.
I like that. I kind of like that.
Yeah. Or Daddy Dragon. I'd go for Daddy Dragon.
But in the realms of fiction, I love the notion of cults. You know, I play with that all the time.
I find it fascinating. It is one of those weird things where I like to explore it through fiction, but I want to try and stay as far away from any of it in reality.
In reality, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where people... I mean, you know, as an aside, cults are really fascinating on a psychological and cultural level.
Yes.
In the sense that people have this preconception that it's weak-willed people that fall for them, or people who have... It's just not true. They can get anyone at any time. It just depends on how they get you and in what circumstances they find you.
Well, you just look at Shinrikyo. We've gone down a really interesting tangent here, haven't we? Shinrikyo. And Shinrikyo basically built the power base on disenfranchised youths in Japan. Yeah, people who were very intelligent, who just felt that the world had moved past them and left them behind. And that's very clever. And he was only, was it $2 million away from having nuclear weapons?
Yeah, well, you can see it happening now. You can see it happening now with subcultures on the internet.
Yes.
So you are getting these figures cropping up. People like Jordan Peterson, people like Ben Shapiro, people like Stefan Molyneux, who are very consciously and very deliberately going after disenfranchised young men. You know, young men who feel as though they've been let down, as though they've been abandoned, as though they have no purpose, no poetry in their lives. As opposed to derogatorily, you could call them the sort of incel movements, as it were. Yeah. And they are deliberately targeting them and deliberately giving them spiel that makes them feel intellectually justified in what they feel about women and about whatever, you know? And they're using them. They are actually mobilizing them both politically and financially for their own gain, you know? Yeah. That they are effectively cult leaders. They're demagogues, you know? They're very clever in the sense that they dress up their demagoguery as though it's intellectual debate or as though it's philosophical discussion. It's not. It is no different from Jim Jones proclaiming from his pulpit. It is no different. They are doing dynamically exactly the same thing, and they're singing exactly the same songs. They're just doing it in a different arena, which is the internet.
Yeah. And I think when you kind of play
Trumpism.
Very much so.
Trumpism. Yeah. It's cultism. It is a kind of cult, you know. Here in the UK, we've got similar things going on with people like Nigel Farage and whatnot. There are cults developing here, you know.
Cults are built out of a loss of self in society. When society kind of moves along and you feel that you are no longer attached to anything, or that you feel that you are no longer listened to.
It's that lack of identity, isn't it? That's what they prey on. It's that lack of identity, that lack of place or purpose. That's what they prey on, because cults, they do one of two things. They either try to make you feel justified in that position, or they pretend to give you that sense of identity and poetry and purpose that you feel you're lacking, which of course they don't.
No,
it's synthetic. It's totally synthetic. But a very clever demagogues and cult leaders and whatnot they notice that and they can prey on it so easily.
It's one of the reasons why in 40k the Imperium is not a good guy. You know, it is not the heroes of the story, because the strength comes from the Imperial cult.
That's right. It's all made up of these subcults, even like the Space Marine legions, those chapters. They're exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, they use psycho-conditioning to indoctrinate their novitiates so that they can't even think outside of the parameters prescribed by the chapter. It's almost impossible. And it's also why, when they do start to think for themselves, you get such extreme turns. Why you get the renegade chapters, you know, who become completely insane.
Well, yeah. To die horribly.
You sound like you've got what I had.
Yeah, it's as today has gone on, I can actually feel myself becoming more and more ill.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Blessings of Nurgle. Sevenfold blessing upon you.
Please stop saying that. You've now made me
It's
sneeze.
a gift. It's a gift. It's a gift to be appreciative of it.
You're cursing me as this continues.
Oh, it's nothing to do with me. I'm a Slanesh worshipper. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm just telling you what Nurgle has done.
You know, since starting
this
this show, I'm fairly convinced that what we've accidentally done is we have conjured some form of plague bearer within the internet. You know, the amount of times
So
one
a
or both of
virus,
us has gone down with something. Yeah.
A scrap code Nurgle virus. What a great idea. What a great idea.
Now to try and remember what I was about to say.
We were talking about cults and the Imperial cult and renegades and all of that fun stuff.
So, yeah, you can see the one-to-one correlation between the two. When there is nothing more anti-cult than somebody who has been through it and come out the other end.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, they become like ex-smokers, don't they?
Exactly what I was thinking,
extreme,
actually. Yeah.
You know? I wholly support them in that. If they want to tear down cults and whatnot, I am totally for that, because as we've said, cults are abusive structures by their very nature, and I've got no problem. Oh, and by the way, yeah, Scientology is a fucking cult. Sorry, I know they don't like it,
Yes.
but they're a cult.
Yes.
By any definition, you're cultists. Sorry.
Absolute cults.
Yeah. And all permutations of that word cult, you know, replacing one letter. They're also that as well.
No, you're absolutely correct. You know, just because something doesn't feel like it's abusive from the inside looking out doesn't mean it isn't.
It doesn't mean it isn't, exactly.
The power of any form of cult is to use its members as a meat grinder to push forward the agenda and the power structure of the people at the top.
And very often, the agenda and the power structure is actually really banal. It's usually just materialist. It's usually the accrual of money and land and power. And, you know, very often it also incorporates things like sexual abuse.
Well, that's exactly why Shinrikyo started, was because On wanted to sleep with women because he was a big fat geek who couldn't get anywhere. When you look at Jim Jones's entire thing was that he was very much paedophilic in nature. He wanted to sleep with very young ladies. And they've just... saying that word on this show has really made me twitch, but there we go.
Yep. There we are.
well, welcome to what I have to do as a day job.
Yeah, but it's worth discussing, and it's really interesting that you can use things like 40k and to a lesser extent Age of Sigmar to metaphorically explore this stuff, because it's there.
Yeah, of course.
It's absolutely there. You look at structures like the Gene Stealer cults, for example, and they're one of the most overt examples of cult-like structures in 40k, because they operate very much like real world cults do.
Yeah. I mean, once you remove the giant space aliens from it.
Once you remove, like, ideologically.
Yeah, because the entire point of them is to cause issues with the existing power structure, to topple the existing regime. And then replace it with something that is more beneficial to the people who run the cult. In this case, it's the Patriarch and the Tyranids. But in reality, that's exactly where a lot of culty terrorist behaviour comes from. Is as I said before, the lack of identity, the lack of self. It causes people to need to find that anchor, and that anchor, in this case, is the awful, abusive nature of a cult, and the cult will give you that idea of family, that idea of strength, but it will also strip away everything that you actually are.
Well, one of the big things cults use in order to manipulate people and in order to give them a sense of prescribed identity is a very old trick. It's something that power structures have been using for years, which is they give them an enemy.
Yeah.
You give people an enemy, a scapegoat, and they will go for it. It's synthetic prescribed identity, and it appeals to us on a very biological level, I think, on a very tribal biological level.
Yes.
There's a reason why a lot of the violence that's associated with ideology, that is ideologically motivated. Like if you look at, for example, a lot of the mass shootings in the USA, for example, a lot of the white nationalist terrorism, which is rampant, by the way. There's a reason why the demographics that cause that, that engage in those activities, all come from very distinct demographics. Listen to very distinct people on the internet. You know, Ben Shapiro comes up a lot. Jordan Peterson comes up a lot. There's a reason why. You know.
Yeah.
They give people an enemy, even where there's no enemy to exist. You know.
And when you tie that back into the fiction, you know, what's very easy to do is to find the figureheads, and at 40k they have got these giant figureheads which you can do one-to-one correlations to real life very easily. You know, the Gene Stealer cults, the Chaos cults, the Imperial cult.
I suppose the real big difference here is that the Gene Stealer cults and the Chaos cults, they don't need really to give or to contrive an enemy, because there is one.
Yeah.
The Imperium actually is this giant oppressive meat grinder that is keeping them down, that is living off of their labor and destroying their lives. It actually is that.
Yeah, very much so. It's the idea of the power. I was going to say the power behind the throne. But the power base that they're pushing against is the thing that is grinding them down. But then that's how it happens in the real world as well. The Imperial cult, it shows the enemy by saying, look, everything that isn't you, which is
the enemy.
It's a very, very powerful thing that's you know, any form of power structure is used since way back before the Romans. You know, these are different. Kill them dead.
Well, it's Machiavelli.
It is. Yeah.
People need to read The Prince. They need to read that book, because it tells you explicitly how power works and how power has always worked. It tells you every trick. It tells you every technique. And they are techniques. The Machiavellian principles are techniques that are still used by politicians today because they work.
Yes. Yeah, and until
they work.
Until we remove ourselves from the tribal nature of humanity's brain, they will always work. And
in that regard, I suppose the Mechanicum has got something going for it, because
has.
they are trying to ascend humanity through transhumanism, through technology, and not just physically, but intellectually, psychologically, and spiritually as well.
Yeah.
So there are numerous examples of the fiction where there are Mechanicum priests who have like tertiary cogitation nodes. They've got like brains in jars affixed to their backs, basically, or giant banks of computer machinery erupting from them that allows them to function on a higher level than the human beings around them. And there is something to be said for that kind of transhumanism. There is something to be said for that, in the sense that it breaks the cycles of our biological history, of our evolutionary history. It removes us from those cycles.
Yeah, it changes the rules. It changes the embedded rules of what it is to be human.
And that's not necessarily bad.
No, not when you want to try to spread out among the stars. You know, the problem is that humanity...
Or if you want to keep humanity from murdering itself.
Well, true. Humanity, both in real life and in the 40k universe, has reached the point where it no longer needs to evolve itself further, because it changes the environment around it to suit itself. We see it now. You know, it exists in the real world now. As a result, because we don't have the evolutionary war going on, we don't need to evolve ourselves to better suit the environment that we've got. Although saying that, I'm fairly sure in the next 20 years we're all going to get a lot hairier in order to try and stay warm.
Oh, I don't need that. I'm hairy enough.
Speaking to the choir there, my friend. Yeah, sometimes people wonder why Bigfoot has run around when I haven't shaved for a week. But anyway, me, Bigfoot. So in order to do that, we'd have to change ourselves with force. You know, we have to forcibly become different and become more.
So we have to take control of our own evolution,
very much so.
Which is what transhumanism is about.
Yeah,
you know?
It's forced evolution.
And it's happening. I mean, it is something that's happening already. It is not some sort of science fiction way into the future thing. It's been happening ever since when, really? Really since the advent of surgery, there has been some degrees of transhumanism.
Yeah.
It's just that we're waiting, it seems, for that particular moment where there is the technological revolution that changes the definition of humanity.
Yeah, the tipping point.
The singularity.
Yeah,
that's essentially what it is. It's that point at which you don't necessarily have human beings and human beings anymore. You have human beings, and then you have this nameless thing that has transcended the condition for whatever reason. And there are lots of problems that go along with that, and lots of fiction that explores it. I mean, if you've ever played Deus Ex, for example, it completely plays with those tropes and those notions. So, like, you have the notion of say if you had like limb and muscle or bone augmentations, could augmented people be allowed to play competitive sports with non-augmented people? It's a difficult question to ask,
Yeah, and it would end up having to be people with the same augmentations would have to be within the same groups, and you know what that creates, don't you?
Exactly, more tribalism.
Exactly.
It creates more tribalism and more separation between this group and that group.
Yeah.
You also have the problem, of course, of these things occurring within an essentially capitalist structure. So what you have are the products of companies inside the bodies of people. So you have companies owning parts of human beings.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of cultural and philosophical issues with it. There are lots. And lots of fiction that explores it. I mean, a lot of cyberpunk fiction explores it, and that's very interesting. 40K explores it to a certain degree. I mean, you have these worlds, like Administratum worlds, for example, where you have sort of human beings wandering around who almost aren't human anymore. Scribes who are basically big mechanical spidery things that just have limbs that are designed for carrying scrolls and for, making records and whatnot, and nothing else. That kind of thing,
What I quite like about 40K's version of transhumanism is that it is built for singular purpose, but also completely useless.
Yeah, it's not about transcendence. That's what I like about it. It never was. It was actually about control.
Yeah.
It's about, like, making human beings not more but lesser, refining them down to their function. What can you do for the empire?
Yeah. You have one thing. Well, that's where servitors comes from. The idea of servitors is that you create something that does a singular task over and over and over again.
And it has no complexity at all. No ambiguity. It does what it's told.
And why are servitors not everywhere? Because they're expensive, and humans are much easier to tell to do the same thing over and over and over again.
Yes, exactly. But don't get me wrong, the Imperium is the kind of power structure where if it had the means and the resources, it would just lobotomize everyone and turn them into servitors.
Well, the lower class, yeah, definitely. I don't know, have you ever watched the film Snowpiercer?
No, right. I haven't.
Watch Snowpiercer. I will not go into what I was about to say because I don't want to spoil it for you then. But there's a sequence in that where the idea of humanity being boiled down to one task and that's it becomes a cut and thrust part of the tale.
Right, okay.
Seriously, Snowpiercer is not what you think it is. It is amazing.
It's good, yeah?
It's amazing, and I cannot wait for the series to come out on Amazon.
May have to have a look at that.
I'm going to be really quiet and not say anything else because there are parts of that film I just want to just say something but not explain it.
Okay. If you want to go and read some more of this sort of cyberpunk stuff, by the way, ladies and gents, go and read anything by William Gibson. Go and read Burning Chrome and Neuromancer and The Difference Engine and all of that stuff. That will give you a fairly good grounding.
The Difference Engine that we can put the blame of steampunk right on. It's your fault, William. You did this.
Right there. But
I mean, Neuromancer...
Neuromancer's great.
I mean,
I read that now and I can't believe it was written in the 1980s.
Yeah, it was about 1981, wasn't it? 1982.
It's so forward-thinking. It projects so much. It's so far into the future and gets so much right about internet culture.
Even the choice of language in that book is ridiculously spot on. It's frightening.
Oh, by the way, ladies and gents, any fans of The Matrix who read Neuromancer will be really angry.
Well,
They'll be really angry because they'll realise that the Wachowskis kind of stole almost everything they wrote for The Matrix.
don't get me started.
Almost everything from Neuromancer.
I have told the story about when I went to see The Matrix, haven't I, on here?
I don't know.
Where half an hour in, 45 minutes in, I stood up because I was going to leave because I was absolutely spitting blood.
Yeah,
because
this is Neuromancer.
Well, not just Neuromancer. It was there was Neuromancer,
Ghost in the Shell,
and there's loads of different stuff. And then it did something. It pointed out at this point I was like, good God in heaven, this is terrible. This film is awful. And then it did the yes, we are kept as batteries for the robots, and that was it. I went, nope, I'm done. Right, we're now at the point where it's ripping off Sonic the Comic. I'm done. I am out. I am leaving this film. And
you know what? It hasn't aged well at all.
No, Dad.
Aesthetically, it hasn't aged well. It really doesn't work anymore. The Matrix. It really doesn't work anymore.
Are you saying that
I think
Nokia phones
initially.
aren't the technological pinnacle that they used to be?
Well, I think the problem is that it's so of its time, it's so of its era, just aesthetically alone, you know? And it just doesn't fly anymore. It just doesn't fly anymore. Even as an aesthetic exercise, it looks a little bit goofy.
Yeah. Very,
and a
very
little bit
rubbery,
silly.
Yeah.
Very rubbery. The styles, which, everyone was going nuts over at the time, are actually really over the top and overly dramatized. And it's like, well, why would it manifest like that? The questions that it raises, why? It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense at all. It's very silly.
If you want to watch something that came out in 1997, I think it is, 97, 98, whichever year it was, that asks a lot of questions, plays around with the idea of reality. There were two films that came out that same year. The 13th Floor, which is...
Yeah, I remember that.
Fucking astonishingly good.
I remember that one.
It's dated, yes, but it's still really good. And Dark City.
Dark City, which does, again, almost everything The Matrix does, but does it way better.
Yeah, and does it well,
Yeah, it does it well. And it's actually, aesthetically, it has that highly stylized thing that The Matrix has going on, but is just better.
Yeah.
The look is just better. It's more timeless than The Matrix is.
No, that's very much on purpose. It makes you try to imagine what this weird futuristic 1940s looks like. Oh, God, I love Dark City. It's
Dark
so
City's
good.
very good. It is very, very good. And way more successful as a story than The Matrix is.
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt.
I mean, don't get me wrong, William Gibson is perfectly fine with it all, by all accounts. I mean, he actually has a... I don't know whether it's a credit on one of the other Matrix films as like an executive producer or whatever. But I certainly wouldn't have been if I were him.
Well,
I would have been spitting feathers, I can tell you.
Gibson's a really strange guy, though. He's
he's great. I like his Twitter.
Oh yeah, he's oddly nihilistic but cheerful with it.
Yeah, he's lots of fun. William Gibson is. He's lots of fun.
I think he's a guy that needs to go onto our authors we need to talk about list.
Probably, yeah. I like him a lot. I've got a penchant for cyberpunk.
Yes.
I love cyberpunk when it's done well, and he's the godfather.
He is.
He's the godfather. He's the great granddaddy of cyberpunk.
I would actually make the argument that he's never been bettered either.
There's a lot of derivatives of cyberpunk that never really work as well. What I love about William Gibson's stuff, like Neuromancer, is the plot doesn't matter at all. The characters don't really matter at all. You just dissolve into this bizarre futurescape, which is so aesthetically interesting, where there's such bizarre language, that refers to the new technology and the new states of play, and these multiple layers of reality where you're not sure what's a simulation, what's a dream, what's a fever hallucination, and you just melt into it as you're reading.
I've always classified William Gibson as being what happens when you have Philip K. Dick, but without the psychosis and drugs.
Without the psychosis, yeah, absolutely. I would say he is like one of the most legitimate inheritors of Philip K. Dick's legacy.
Without a doubt.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Philip K. Dick too.
As all right-minded people should, because the man was amazing.
Oh, he was a genius.
Yeah.
He was a broken genius. He was... his visions were incredible.
He's also
incredible.
He's also one of those guys where his life story is literally as interesting as his
if
actual
not
work.
more so.
Yeah, well, true enough, yeah.
If not more so, absolutely. I mean, you read A Scanner Darkly or you watch the film, which is actually very good.
That's amazing.
Which is semi-autobiographical. And according to his daughter, who does a commentary track on the DVD,
wow.
very autobiographical.
Right.
That's the life they lived, you know? Whilst they lived with him, which wasn't very long.
No.
He had 5 wives, by the way. He was very difficult to live with because he was crazy. He was. I mean, he fried his mind on prescription amphetamines and drugs and whatnot.
He did. He really did.
And the daughter was saying by the end, he was constantly like, he didn't know if they were real or if there was some kind of replicant or simulacra that had been sent to spy on him, or if he was real. He was constantly questioning his own personality and, you know, his own reality, and they just couldn't cope in the end, and they had to leave, you know, because he was getting dangerous. He was getting dangerous by that point, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's sad when it comes to it, because you got to imagine what would his work have been like if he had been able to live in a world where he himself could have kept himself on the straight and narrow.
That's the difficult thing, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? Would he have had these great existential flights of fancy without the paranoia, without the drugs, without the damage to his mind? I'm not sure he would. Part of what makes the fiction so good is the fact that it is so out there. It's so like a drug trip. It is so like being inside a broken, fractured, paranoid mind that doesn't have any parameters at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the fiction would have been as good without it.
That's
really
the horror
not.
of it, isn't it? That, you know, much like when we talk about Lovecraft, it's the pain and the suffering that the man's gone through in order to write the fiction, which is outlasted him.
Absolutely. I have an intimation that it wouldn't have been as good. It just wouldn't have been as interesting. Maybe he wouldn't have even sat down and put pen to paper were it not for these problems. Were it not... The big thing for Dick was existentialism, obviously. It was, am I a man? Am I this human being? Or am I a simulation of a man created in some celestial computer? It's wonderful stuff.
You just made me think there. I mean, I don't know if anyone, and to be honest, this is going to be of no interest to anyone except me, but I wonder if he was ever truly diagnosed with anything, because the way that, just thinking about it now, it sounds like he suffered a lot from Capgras, the identical imposter syndrome. You know,
It wouldn't have surprised me at all. I'm sure he was diagnosed with some things. I know he was diagnosed with some forms of depression.
yes.
Clearly. But I'm not sure what else he would have been diagnosed with. But he had a lot of conditions
That's true.
piled up on top of one another. That much is very clear.
Tell you what, for the next episode, we'll because I'm just aware that we're so far
Yes,
off
we're
the
actually sort of we went off the beaten track a little bit there, but it all feeds back. It
does.
back. These are all influences, ladies and gents, that you will find in 40K.
Yeah.
That's what's so fun about the mythology, about the history. It is this giant melting pot of influences, you know? They're all there. It's all in there somewhere. And if you read some of the fiction from the Black Library, you have these existential crises. If you read the Araman series, there's these existential crises occur. So, you know?
Well, what I was going to say was, shall we next episode either do Philip K. Dick or shall we do William Gibson as an overview?
I mean, what we could do is like more general science fiction author influence in 40K. That'd be good. That'd
be a fun one.
That would be really good because you know Ursula K. Le Guin, obviously.
Yep.
There's so much. There's so much. Even just stuff like H.G. Wells, Jules Verne. That's all in there too.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's all in there. Mary Shelley to a very sincere degree. You know, clearly. It's all there.
It could be a fun little series, just talking about some of the authors that have... but that's a conversation for another time.
Absolutely. We were going to talk about the Sisters of Battle, weren't we?
And then we went off on cults, and that was it.
That was it,
so I think,
that was it.
We'll do a quick roundup of the Sisters of Battle.
Yeah, I mean, what is going on with them at the moment? I mean, we know, obviously, they're building them up. They are going to be a huge release.
Massive.
I mean, they're building them up in the way they would normally build up like a Space Marine release or something. Something huge.
I would actually say it's bigger than that because they have shown everything that they've been doing. They've been they've shown behind the curtain for the last year. And when's the last time anybody saw anything like this? When's the last time?
It's a fair point. It's a fair point because they just don't do that.
No,
do they?
Never do. It's always this is going to release next, going on pre-order next week. Which I really wish they'd stop doing. In all honesty, it's one of those. Yeah. I understand why it happens, but as a business model, it's starting to drive me up the wall.
Because you can't keep up.
I cannot keep up.
Yeah. I can't keep up either. I've got to admit, there's so much. There's so much. I mean, what interests me about the Sisters of Battle is how they've moved them on in terms of the background now. Yeah. I mean, the stuff that's already happened. I mean, you read like the stuff from the fall of Cadia and all of that, and the Sisters of Battle are front and center. They're actually a really prominent force. You've had Saint Celestine and all of that. Excuse me.
More Nurgle.
That's my own blessing of Nurgle, yeah. We've had, if you read Plague War, you've got the Sisters of Battle finding these saints that are wandering around.
Yep.
These human saints who are able to manifest really powerful psychic powers to undo the work of chaos. I mean, I'm imagining that's going to feed into Psychic Awakening quite profound. I mean, for the Sisters of Battle, that's what you'll get. That's what you'll have. You'll have not psychers, you'll have saints.
I think you're absolutely right there. I think whatever Psychic Awakening is going to be and how that is going to be how they're going to release the Sisters of Battle in narrative. It's going to be something. Obviously, you start off with the Eldari. That's what we were talking about before. But I think maybe 2 or 3 releases in, it's going to be this giant Sisters of Battle crusade.
Yeah.
I want to know if it's got anything to do with the Saint Celestine Inquisitor Greyfax book, which was all to do with the Soriatis being militarized, where they become the complete military wing of the church.
Yep.
I think it would be interesting if that's the route they go down.
Yeah, because in order for them to work as a force, they're going to have to do something like that, aren't they? Because at the moment, they're kind of, up until the end, like the Vigilus stuff, they were kind of scattered about.
Yeah.
They were fighting alongside Astra Militarium regiments, or they were defending their own shrine worlds or something like that. But if there's something like Celestine that has come along and has mobilized them, has turned them into an actual force, that could be very interesting. And not only that, but that sets up some really cool political tensions for the Imperium, because Roboot is not going to be happy about that.
No, sir.
He is not. I could see there being actual wars being fought in the Imperium over that.
Mm-hmm. And it's
Ultramarines versus the Adeptus Sororitas.
Yeah, totally. And of course, then the question is, are they going to try to do something with them that's going to push them to make them more into a risk to the Space Marines? Is it good?
I hope so.
I do and I don't, because on one hand, I don't want them just to be female Space Marines.
No, we don't want that. We definitely don't want that.
I want them to be very much their own thing, their own power base. But on the other hand, I am somewhat concerned that if they go up against Space Marines, it's still a bit of a one-sided fight. I don't know. It's one of those interesting ones where, what do you do to make them more than just nuns with guns?
I think the thing to do is look at the fiction,
and
look at Psychic Awakening. So, what is it that gives them their power? It's faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's faith, and it's the thing about faith in the 40k universe. As we know, it's not just belief.
No,
it actually physically affects reality. So if you've got the Adeptus Sororitas who have this absolute unquenchable belief that the Emperor is protecting them and that they're on the Emperor's side, and that they come along with these saints who manifest incredible capabilities, that's how to make them match up to the physical might of the Space Marines.
Yeah, that would work. Yeah, you make them into, as much as there are weapons there to shoot and stab and kill. You make the thrust of it being the Emperor's faith.
Exactly.
The faith in the Emperor is what keeps us safe.
So they
That
have
makes
blessings,
sense.
and they have, that protect them or that strike down their enemies or stuff like that, yeah?
Yeah, okay, I'm with you on that. I'm behind that as a plan.
So lots of, in game terms, that would manifest as lots of aura effects.
Yes.
Lots and lots of, tiered auras that stack.
Mm-hmm. Stack and buff.
Yeah. That's the way to do them, I think.
which needs to be my wrestling name.
Stack and buff.
Stack and buff.
I quite like that. But no, I think that's the way to do them. That is definitely the way to go with them.
Yeah.
Because it's there, isn't it? It's innate to the metaphysics of the universe. The mechanics are there.
Yeah.
Works for the Chaos followers.
Yeah. So
that's what our lot do.
So what you do is you turn them into the Chaos Gods of Order, don't you? Really?
Exactly that.
I am all over that as an idea. I really, really like that.
I've got a funny feeling that's where they're going to go, because that's where all the fiction is.
Yeah.
That's where all the fiction is. I think they're going to make them way more AOS in their own peculiar way. So they're not just like soldiers. They're going to have things like Saint Celestine does with the manifestations, the doves, the rose petals, the light, all of that nonsense. They're going to be like saintly figures, these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm all over. I think that's the way they should definitely go with them.
If that's the case, it's going to be another thing where I struggle to not start another army, and I've made that promise to myself that I cannot do 40k as well because AOS and Warcry.
It's taking all your time, yeah.
Well, it's taking all my time, taking all the small amount of money that I've got, and
that might be difficult in up and coming years because it looks like 40k's got a bit of a revolution happening now.
Massively so. 40k that. In the same way that what the old Warhammer Fantasy Battle did, it kind of stagnated for years and now has just gone absolutely off the wall. It's ridiculous to watch,
Just buying the books is problematic at the moment, especially with the new format. Where you've got the Prime Codex, which is very good, then you've got the additional codices, which are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
It's slightly problematic.
It's just not fair, George. Why can't I have all the nice things?
Yeah.
But I am more excited over the Sisters of Battle releases, not from a I must own it state of mind, but as an interest to see how it works, how the narrative works. I know for a fact that I'm going to be getting books and things because that's where a lot of my love comes from, and always has been since I started way back when I was a young boy.
Likewise.
Yeah, the models and everything are the cut, but the books and the narrative is the thrust.
That's what gets me. Obviously, that's just my nature all the way through. Of course, the fiction and the mythology is what's going to get me. So for me, the books are almost essential at this point.
Yeah.
I'm going to be getting all of those supplement codices, all of them, every single one.
Good Lord. It was nice knowing you, George. As you live in your cardboard boxes and.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be able to after that. I could make a house out of the books themselves.
Don't speak to him. That's the book man.
Yes, come away, child. Come away.
So I think what we'll do is we're going to start closing down because we're over the hour.
No worries.
That has been a very interesting show. It wasn't what we planned to do at all.
No, but I think one of the better ones, to be honest.
But we just did what we always do, which is take a tangent and run it into the ground.
I think that's what makes the Fluffenhammer special.
It is, because we don't have any real plans. We just turn up and talk to each other because we enjoy each other's company.
Exactly that. Exactly that. I think it's what makes the Fluffenhammer so interesting and intriguing. I wouldn't be able to cope if it were one of the more sort of technical podcasts.
No.
Where it's just about the news and the rules and whatnot.
Well, it's very much the type of people we are. We're both heavy readers, heavy people who really enjoy sort of the reading and the learning. And neither of us enjoy heavily formatted experiences.
No, we don't at all. Sort of heavily prescribed experiences. Nope.
No.
No. Doesn't work.
Far too chaotic for that.
Doesn't work. Tried it with my own videos over on the Exaggerated Elegy channel. Doesn't work.
Oh, by the way, one of the things that keeps happening, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, is that people leave comments on YouTube videos or through the Patreon or through Twitter going, so when's George doing another Horus Heresy?
When I can get some of them, the problem is some of them I have to reread.
Yeah.
Because I've forgotten about them. Some of them I don't have to because I'm really familiar with them. Like when we get to things like 1,000 Suns and the First Heretic and Betrayer and all of that shenanigans, I won't have to reread them because I know them so well.
Yeah.
Some of them, usually the ones that are not the best, are the ones I've got to reread because I forget about them.
It's actually get me thinking, would it be an interesting thing to, if time allows me, it'd be interesting to start doing the AOS books from the start. And then
that would be interesting to show how the setting has changed.
Yeah, and just watch the evolution of it as it goes along. So that
would be interesting.
It's another one of my
good
pile
example.
of ideas.
The next one I've got to do is Fallen Angels. I have read it. I can't remember a single thing about it.
Right.
And I mean a single thing.
Yeah.
Other than that it involves the Dark Angels. That's it. I cannot remember characters. I cannot remember settings or anything.
Oh dear.
So I'm going to have to reread that one.
Oh dear.
I'm sorry.
So it'll be a little while before we...
a little while. I'll get on to rereading it so I can actually... Because I know people quite like the Horus Heresy retrospective, so I'll get on with that.
That's a bit of an understatement, George. If I put the notes of what people send me against people asking for more Horus Heresy stuff, if it's not 1-to-1, then the Horus Heresy stuff is winning.
Is it? Oh, right, that's nice to know.
So that's the sheer volume of people, of the messages I get asking about it.
Oh, that's sweet. So, that's really cool. Well, in that case, I will endeavour to get my backside into gear and we'll read Fallen Angels, which the fact that I can't remember anything about it doesn't bode well.
No, it doesn't, does it?
Really doesn't bode well, but there we go. Then again, after that, I think we're getting on to the 1,000 Suns then, so that'll be a good one.
I think it's interesting actually that you're saying about reading that when we got the thing for the next for this month's White Dwarf, and on the front of it there is a Dark Angel. The Dark Angels, yeah.
Interesting. Well, there's an index of Astartes in there, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Just fluff, just background, because of course they're going to be releasing the supplement codex for the Dark Angels at some point. So, but still, I'm fascinated. Why are they releasing an index at this point? Is there something significant happening with the Dark Angels, one wonders?
Well, you got to wonder if it's got something to do with Psychic Awakening, don't you?
One does, and the Watchers in the Dark, and Luther, and perhaps even the return of Lionel Johnson, who knows?
Sod Lionel Johnson with the return of Cloud Runner. Go on.
Best of luck with that one.
Lame Bear, Fierce Weasel, come on.
Best of luck, because that bit of background it hasn't been entirely expunged, but it's been very, very diminished.
They turned it into a lie, George.
Yep.
They turned it into a lie.
They did, because they wanted the Dark Angels to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Still hurts.
They wanted them to go somewhere else. And the fun thing is, I like that old background, I really do, but I also like what they've done with the Dark Angels since.
That's the problem.
So the tension is really strong. It's really difficult, you know?
It's a kid. Years ago, I ran an RPG where one of the characters died a horrible, horrible death. And the lass that was playing the character, she rolled up a new character and said, is it possible to be haunted by my old character?
Oh, that's cool.
And then you slowly merge the two characters together to make a third.
Oh, I love
character.
that. That's a brilliant idea. I'm going to steal that.
It was a lot of fun. And
stealing that.
Me being me went, right, okay, but that means you've got two conflicting sets of memories working at any given time.
Love it.
That's how I feel about the Dark Angels.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
Because I like them both.
But they're one of the few Imperial chapters whose background has actually changed a lot.
Oh, dramatically so.
Because the whole origins of the Deathwing are now different.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea, the story
different.
of Cloud Runner, out now on the Fluffenhammer YouTube channel, is now a fable to be told to hide the truth.
Yep.
The metaphysics at play there hurts. It really does.
Yeah. And I understand why, because it was the background for the Deathwing for the longest time.
Well, not that long, actually. Less than 10 years.
Was it less than 10 years? God.
Well, if you
wow.
think-
It felt like a long time because I was a kid.
Exactly. I mean, if you think that Deathwing book probably came out 89, 90.
Yeah,
And
cripes.
then the Deathwing Codex.
I was 5.
Yeah. The Deathwing Codex that changed it all would have been 2000.
Yeah, it would. The Angels of Death Codex.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's even,
No. It's the one after that,
It
wasn't
is,
it?
yeah,
It was
yeah.
the. Yeah, Jesus.
So yeah.
But that's really odd, isn't it? That they must be one of the only chapters that have changed that dramatically.
Yeah, none of the others have.
None of the others have had things where actually, no, that didn't happen. We're just going to retcon it.
Yeah.
The only other Legion I can think of where that's happened is the Emperor's Children,
Yeah, okay.
because they've changed dramatically too.
Massively, yeah.
Massively, actually. Their entire history has changed with the Horus Heresy books.
I mean, I suppose you could make the argument that the Red Corsairs went from being nothing to
Yes.
something.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
But apart from that, no, I can't think of any others. I mean,
I can't think of many others.
much like I read a thing the other day. It just springs to mind now. If you ever want to feel like being a ghost, listen to a podcast where the hosts can't quite remember something that you know very well.
Ah, yeah.
And right now, I'm sure someone somewhere is screaming something at us, going, "What about?"
What about these guys?
Yeah.
They've changed in this way, and
The Imperial Fists, they were originally all wearing hats.
or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with that, that's going to be the perfect time to bow out of this episode.
I think so. I think so. We've covered the board. I think
We have gone everywhere this episode.
we have.
So, as always, thank you very much for listening, if indeed you still are.
Yes, thank you so much for listening to us ramble on in that one. It was good fun.
George, do you want to throw anything out into the world?
Oh, the usual stuff, really. You can find me over at strangeplaygrounds.com. Articles, fiction, bits of short stories and whatnot. Links to all of my published stuff. Go buy it. Leave reviews, please. That would be great. You'll find my short story collection, Strange Playgrounds, Essential Atrocities, and Born in Blood Volume 1 on Amazon. If you do buy them, please leave a review. And you can find me messing about on Twitter with all sorts of stuff at Enigmatic Elegy and around the YouTube's on Exaggerated Elegy, if you can spell it. Which a lot of people can't.
I have it saved.
Yay!
Just to be on the safe side.
A lot of people can't spell it, but I've got a lot of people who've mispronounced it as well.
Yes, I remember actually years ago when we were doing the Lovecraft, the Lurkers in the Lobby.
Yeah.
You sat there and went, how did you do that? And you sat. I felt that you staring at me suspiciously, going, "You pronounced that correctly. Why?"
Yeah, it is unusual. It's strange to find people who can pronounce it correctly, and it makes me suspicious. It makes me paranoid.
As for myself, you can find me on Twitter at Grufflock, and you can find us at The Fluffenhammer. You can find the show at thefluffenhammer.com, because we have a .com now.
Yay!
This is what happens when things start to work. We can
Yes.
afford a .com. It's great. Also, you can find me on Facebook at The Fluffenhammer, both page and group. The Fluff and Meet is taking place the 2nd of November over at Warhammer World, where we're going to meet up. We're going to play some games. We're going to get some drinks. We're going to eat some food. That's going to be quite good fun.
That's going to be a laugh, I'm sure.
And what was the other thing I had to say? Oh, and there are 3 sets of pogs left. 3
Yay.
sets of Fluffenhammer pogs, £10 shipped, and you get an entire set of Fluffenhammer pogs. This is my tester to see if it works. Once these ones are gone, they are gone. I'm not going to be replacing them. If they all sell out, however, there will be a series of pogs for every season of the Old World Order show when that starts.
Brilliant stuff.
So it's just a little silly fun thing, but it's also
a bit of a laugh, you know.
It is. And outside of that, we'll be launching a new site in the next few months, which has got all of my art and audio recordings on that you can buy. So basically, give me money. I've got a baby girl on the way. Next year, I'm going to be able to afford nothing. So yeah, help. Oh, God. And with that, we're going to get out of here. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. And
yes, thank you guys, as always.
And as usual, thank you, George. And praise Millman.
Praise Millman. Praise Millman. Brilliance. I enjoyed that.
Prepare now!